Walking Without Skin, Managing Adversity with Vulnerability.
Pain is wrong, every inch of my heart like an open wound. I can't go on, I'll drown if I don't stop the bleeding soon.
In the Indian subcontinent, the word divorce is still a bit taboo. So I wasn't probably ready to be a divorced woman. Once you go through abuse, most of the time you don't feel like the person you used to be. So it was a period of rediscovering myself.
Where can I find some protection to prevent this ongoing infection? I'm walking without skin.
You are listening to Walking Without Skin, the show where we encourage our guests to be vulnerable, to share their voices with authenticity, to tell their stories from the heart. We will talk about hope and recovery, about overcoming loss, changes, challenges, and adversities. We will walk without skin.
How will I know when it's safer? When every step feels like sandpaper. I'm walking without skin. I'm walking without skin.
And here is your host, Lois Wagner.
Hi, I am Lois, your friend for forgiveness and the creator of Walking Without Skin. I have a book with the same title, Walking Without Skin. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting to Elita Karim from Bangladesh, now living in Singapore. Elita is a management consultant and TEDx speaker with a story on how to combat domestic violence in Southeast Asia. Hi, Elita.
Hi, Louise. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so grateful that you are. Thank you for joining us. Elita, before we start, I'd like to ask you, the term walking without skin, what does it mean to you?
Just looking at the name itself, what I can feel is that it's walking without a shell or a barrier around you. So basically exposing who you are as a person.
Nice, thank you. Thank you for that. So, Elita, you've just completed your TEDx talk, which is not online yet, called How to Combat Domestic Violence in Southeast Asia. Why specifically Southeast Asia?
So as I was doing my research on domestic violence, I was looking at the statistics from various parts of the world. And it turns out that the WHO survey shows that in Southeast Asia, 1 in 3 women actually go through domestic violence in the hands of their husbands or partners. And since I am living in this part of the world, it just seems like a story that should be called out, that it needs to be highlighted. And that's why Southeast Asia is what I picked for my talk.
Okay, so what prompted you to want to do this talk?
Great question. So, Louise, I'm basically a domestic violence survivor myself. And when I came out of my abusive marriage, at first, I was just dealing with my own healing. And as time went by, I realized that this is a topic that is not enough talked about, but we need to talk about this and we need to raise awareness. When I at times tell people that I'm a survivor, at times people don't know how to react. If I say, I'm actually a domestic violence survivor, I went through domestic violence when I was married, people don't know how to react, and that's usually the reaction that survivors or victims get everywhere. And if we can talk about it, raise the awareness and sort of guide people on how to help survivors and victims, I feel that we can make the world a more safer place for women. So I took it upon myself to have this talk and raise the awareness.
Yes, we definitely need to all stand up and share our stories. But your story started on the night you were married.
It was actually the night of my honeymoon. Yes, yes. So as you already mentioned about me, I'm from Bangladesh, and I got married when I was 28. And the story of violence started during my honeymoon. Basically, we were away from home and, in a foreign island, and it was supposed to be all beautiful and magical. And I was so thrilled because it was supposed to be the beginning of my happy ever after. As it turned out that, me and my ex-husband at that time, we got into a silly argument. And at one point, he just slapped me very hard, and it punctured my eardrum. So that was basically my world crashing down. And I just realized that, first of all, I'm completely alone, and I was trying to process what was happening. And the next thought that hit me was, I've made a terrible mistake marrying this person.
Sure. So how did you get out of that relationship?
It took me quite a long time, or so it seems. So after that incident happened and we came back to Bangladesh from our honeymoon, basically my parents encouraged me, they strongly recommended me to divorce him, saying that, if this happened once, it will happen again. There is no, it's a behavior pattern in some people. And although he has apologized or he said that, I made a mistake, etc., he is most likely to do it again. So for my own safety and security, I should consider leaving him. At that moment, I was newly married, and I just wanted to give my marriage another chance. And also, we just a little bit of more background here. So I have married this person against the wish of my parents. My parents did not think that he was suitable for me. And looking back, I know they were right. But I just thought that, okay, I'll give love a chance. I wanted to be happy ever after with the person I was in love with. So after we got married and the violence started, I just thought that, he has said sorry and I sacrificed so much. I left my family to be with him. Maybe I should give it some chance, see if things improve and I can actually end up being happy with him. So I gave him another chance. And down the line, as he became more accepted in my friend circle and with my family, so he was basically putting on a very nice front outside. He was nice to everybody around, but behind closed doors, it was a different face with me. I felt that if I highlighted it, that I told people that, okay, actually this is happening, they might think, first of all, they would not look at him the same way. They would, in a way, probably avoid him or outcast him, or they would not be positive towards him anymore, and that would affect my married life as well. And I still in some way wanted my husband to be liked by the people who were close to me. So that was one reason. And the second reason was that from the place where I come from, Bangladesh, in the Indian subcontinent, the word divorce is still a bit taboo. So I wasn't probably ready to be a divorced woman, because life as a divorced woman is not always easy due to socioeconomic, the structure over there. So I just thought, okay, I'll try, I will try as long as I can. Hopefully things will change. What that translated into was basically me walking on eggshells all the time and basically just making sure that I do everything that he asks me to do and never cross him as much as possible, and or voice out my opinion, what I wanted, what I needed, and basically just to make sure that he's happy. Because if ever there was a situation that where we had some kind of a conflict or an argument, and if I expressed myself strongly, then I knew that it could lead to physical violence. So I tried to avoid it at all times. So we were married we lived together as husband and wife for 1.5 years. So during that 1.5 years, there were several instances of physical violence. When the last incident happened, I was basically scared for my life. That was the first time I felt that this person could actually fatally harm me. And that's when I decided to leave him. Yeah.
And was it difficult considering your circumstances and the traditions in your society?
It was a mental sort of barrier I had to overcome. I think when you are suddenly in a situation where your life is at risk, you have to make a decision in that spot, in a way, right? I'll just go into a little bit of detail in the last incident that happened. So he basically hurt me pretty badly, and I was so shaken. At that moment, I realized, that my marriage is over and I cannot do this anymore. And then I decided that, I'm gonna leave him. And at that time, when your life is at risk, you don't really think of society or whether, your decision will be accepted by people. You just want to survive. What really helped me is the support from my friends and family, because they never questioned my decision. And at that point, when the last incident of violence happened, I really basically opened up to everybody. And I was telling them that actually this has been happening for quite a long time. And I just didn't want to say anything. I thought at one point it may stop. Maybe he would realize that this was being unfair to me, or that, I don't know, some miracle would happen and things would get better. But when people heard, including my parents, my sister, who's like my best friend, and my friends as well, they were really shocked. They were shocked. They said that you should have said something sooner. We could see that you were not happy. Like, we could see in your expression and your demeanor that something wasn't right, but we could never believe that. We could never sort of imagine that you were going through it. So on your question on whether it was easy or not, because of all that support that I had, I sort of had the strength to actually go through with leaving him and getting my divorce.
It's so important to have that support group around you. We really need to have all the support we can. And I love the fact that you now are supporting other women who are going through a similar situation. So great. So how do you help other women? What are the things you do to support them?
So, Louise, basically back in 2019, I started to volunteer. So I was volunteering with a domestic violence shelter in Singapore, where I was working with families who went through domestic violence. So that would be young mothers with children, sometimes just the women themselves. And I was just spending time with them and spending time babysitting their children. At times I would talk to them. We were not really allowed to really speak about the violence in their lives as volunteers, but just being around them and also letting them know in conversations that I'm also a survivor, that helps me to create this bond with them and also feel a sense of community. And I remember this particular young woman that I was interacting with. I was babysitting her 2 kids. So I told her that, this is something that happened in my life about 5 years ago. And then she was really surprised because at that time I have gone through my healing process and, I was living a very happy, normal life. So she was still going through her rehabilitation process. So I think that sort of gave her an idea of that, life can actually be great after you get out of the domestic violence situation. So one way I was helping in the past was through volunteering. And in 2020, when COVID hit, the shelter sort of got partially closed. So I couldn't really do volunteering anymore. Then what I decided to do is sort of look out within my own family and friend circle. And I was trying to identify within the people that I knew, how many of them had gone through domestic violence. And a couple of my cousins, they are in abusive relationships. I wouldn't say that those relationships are physically abusive. I'm not 100% sure if they are, but they are definitely abusive marriages. So I tend to support them as a family or extended family member and help to provide if they need any kind of support, be it at times through financially or in any other means that I can. So that's one way that I'm doing it. I'm also friends with a couple of people that I know have gone through their experiences as well. So sometimes, support is talking to somebody about it and giving them that friendship and that safe space to talk about things. That is something that I also do within my friend circle. I do know people who have gone through it. So it's like a sisterhood that we have where we talk about these issues and we sort of talk about our own journeys. And as you said, that, I've recently done a TED Talk. So that is also my way of communicating to the wider world and other survivors and victims out there that, there's an issue that needs to be spoken about and we need to take steps about it. And finally, I'll also be speaking at an event, in a few weeks, which is targeted towards survivors of abusive relationships. And I'll be talking about how to deal with grief and how to basically move forward from this situation to the next chapter of your life. So these are things that I've started to do very recently, and I'm very passionate about it. And I'll be doing them more and more.
Yes, we need people like you out there who are not afraid to share their stories, because when you know that you're not alone, it definitely does help. What you said just now is also important, that it's not always physical abuse. There's financial abuse and emotional abuse. There's all types of abuse that can take place in the home. So we must be aware of those different types of abuse as well. How did you heal? What did you go through in your healing journey?
That's a really great question, Louise. I think my healing journey was interesting. So the first thing that I did, I remember when I got separated, I came back to my parents' home. I was still processing my grief of, my marriage falling apart and, how my life is going to be. At that time, the thought that went through my head was that my life is over, That's what I was thinking. And a couple of days, I was just thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And then I just realized that I really need to move forward with my life. And now I have an ability to do things that I always dreamed of. So my immediate decision was to pursue my MBA abroad. So before I got married, I always had an ambition to study abroad and do my MBA. Unfortunately, when I did get married and I talked it out with my ex-husband, he wasn't supportive, so I had to let the dream go. But then, I was separated and I was getting out of my marriage and the world was my oyster. So I decided that I'm going to, go abroad and do my MBA. And at that time I was working full time. So basically I just decided that, coming home, whatever spare time I had, I would just prepare for that. So I was doing my GMAT examination. I was applying to business schools. And I was very fortunate to get a scholarship at University of Manchester, Manchester Business School. So within a few months, I actually moved to the UK and started, my new life. And the journey that I started there was not very easy because I was still shaken. My confidence was very much shaken. Once you go through abuse, you most of the time you don't feel like the person you used to be. So it was a period of rediscovering myself, and I wasn't the extroverted or friendly person that I used to be. I tried to become like a wallflower, sort of blend in the crowd so no one would take notice of me. And I felt that if I let people in, they would come to know what I have been through, and that maybe think that I was damaged, and I didn't want people to see me that way. So I just focused on myself, and I was doing the thing that came to me more naturally and what I was good at, which is my studies and my academics. And as the months went by, I just started to feel more and more confident about myself that, hey, I still have my talent. I can still do really well in my studies. So I just opened up more and I was making more friends. And as I got to make more friends, I did confide in a few of them that, this is something that I went through. And they told me that I was very brave and that I was inspirational. That also helped me sort of, feel that, it's something actually brave that I've done, come out of this violent situation, I should be proud of myself. So I think that was the beginning of my healing journey, sort of getting more confident about myself and realizing that that incident didn't need to define me. In the years and months that followed, I focused more on my spiritual journey and my personal transformation. I felt that since I've been in abusive situations, my self-esteem in some situations was still low, especially in the workplace. So I felt that I had to overcompensate and, be this people pleaser to make other people happy and not have strong boundaries around myself. And that really made things challenging for me in my first couple of years in Singapore as well. And I'm a management consultant, and it's a tough sector to be in, and people try to squeeze as much as possible out of you. So as I was going through my work situations, I was realizing that I was so deeply unhappy. And I realized that, it's not that I'm an unlucky person going through tough situations. There is something that I need to heal within myself. So what I decided to do was, go into a practice of meditation and spirituality. And I also did something which is around forgiveness. I was reading this book by, I think her name is Deborah Burned. She is the author of a book called Let Love In. So she basically teaches people on how to let your guard down after being in traumatic situations and sort of let love in from all aspects of your life. And she really focused on forgiveness. And for me, at first, I thought, how can I forgive my abuser? I can never do that, He's terrible. And what he has done to me is not forgivable. But then I realized that energy and that heart that I was carrying within me is probably blocking the positivities that could come into my life. So I made a decision one day, I'm going to do this. And I was just going through this meditation on forgiveness, and I could just in the process feel that all the heart and the pain and basically all the blame that I was containing within myself in every cell of my body that was slowly sort of melting and flushing itself out. And after that, it was definitely not an easy process because, all these emotions are flowing out of you. You find yourself breaking down and crying. But after a while, I just started to feel better. And it's a process that I followed, that I had to do a few times to sort of get to a place where I felt that I don't really hate my abuser anymore. A person is what they are. I can't go back and change my past. And I just wish him well wherever he is, and that, he finds his inner peace. People who project violence on other people or abuse onto other people, they're struggling with their own personal issues and inner demons as well. So I came to a point where I felt that I hope he heals and I hope he creates a better life for himself. And I'm fine in myself, in my own peace, and moving forward with my hopes and dreams. So that's in a nutshell my healing process.
Forgiveness is such a powerful act. I forgave the stranger who raped me, and it really did set me free. You mentioned that you were, people were saying you were brave. I've got a program, a movement called Be Brave, and the objective of it is to eradicate bullying, harassment, and sexual violence. And what, in your mind, what does the word brave mean in that context?
I think first and foremost, brave means sharing, sharing about what you went through. That's the first step of bravery. At times we know what has happened to us, but we are internally struggling to accept it, because part of us feels like if I say it out loud to somebody, they wouldn't accept me as a whole human being. They would probably think that I'm not whole enough, or maybe I'm damaged for what I went through. And deep down, I feel that we all look for that acceptance, but that acceptance has to come from within. But it's a process that is not, I can't say it's step by step. It's probably a few things that needs to work together. I feel like at times if we speak about it, that yes, I'm a survivor of bullying or abuse or rape or violence, in speaking out, we are sharing and also accepting us for who we are. So for me, first and foremost, that is what bravery means.
Thank you. So if you could have a billboard on the side of the road with anything written on it, what would you put on that billboard?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm just thinking. I think I would actually put "Be brave," and anyone who crosses that billboard will have their own interpretation of it. And say anybody is passing, walking around the road or in a car, they look at the billboard, and in the back of their mind, they were struggling with a decision that they need to make. When they look at it, they will feel like, oh yeah, I can be brave. It's a sign from the universe that I should be brave. So that's something I would put on.
Thank you. You have 3 things that you say you want to help women with who are in abusive relationships. What are those 3 things?
Right. So I feel that, first of all, we need to, as abuse survivors or abuse victims, at first we need to make that decision with ourselves of prioritizing ourselves and our happiness. That, yeah, I prioritize me. I'm a human being and I deserve all the love, attention, and, safety in the world that the world has to offer me. That is the first big sort of decision that somebody needs to make and sort of realize as well. So number 1 would be encouraging women to prioritize themselves and make a decision. The second would be, I would say, once you have made the decision, and it's a difficult one to come to, you sort of think, what now? What do I do? Because I've gone through this traumatic experience. What is waiting in life next for me? And then, I would like to sort of share with everybody that, at these points, we need to visualize the life that we would really love to have. What kind of person do we want to become? How do we see our relationships with other people? How do we see life in terms of our job or our vocation, in terms of our time and money freedom? So all these aspects of life. And also I forgot our health and well-being, very important. So in all these aspects of life, how do we see ourselves? Not at the present moment, because this is our current reality, but how would we want to see it in the future? So that is something that I would encourage women, survivors, victims to think about. And when we can see that beautiful future sort of laid out or in our dreams, we are motivated to take action. And we can take action every day, one step at a time, just one small action that would lead us towards that dream. And that is something, it would help us also overcome our past or our definition of ourselves and move on with our whole full confidence. So that is something I would also encourage women to look into. And then also focus on our personal development and our transformation, which includes, very importantly, forgiveness, as we both talked about. And I shouldn't say it's difficult or challenging. It's a process for everybody. And it's something that we need to do maybe on a daily basis, and that sort of transcends beyond the bullying and the abuse and any kind of other violent situations, because on our daily life, people also offend us, annoy us, or we have those situations where we are not feeling positively towards somebody. So forgiveness is very key because it lets out the negative energy that we hold in our body and basically allow all the positive situations and opportunities to flow in. So personal development as well as forgiveness is absolutely key, I believe. And we should all spend time to find our best version which means, again, going back, taking action. So that's also very important. And finally, I would say that the last thing that I would like to encourage victims and survivors to do, as well as women in general, is to basically use your experience and consider it as a gift and evaluate what we can do to spread that gift around us. Because I think our experiences, and Louis, maybe you'll agree with this one as well, these experiences shape us to be who we are and elevate us in a way. And then we can share our knowledge and experience with others and just, be a support system and this chain and network of sisterhood and helping each other.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful that you've come through your abuse, you've survived your abuse. Not only have you survived, but you've thrived, and you're giving back to society, and you're talking about it and sharing it. I think that's the best we can do. But I find it so sad that we have to do that we have to be there as a support. This shouldn't happen. We have to stop it happening. But thank you so much for your vulnerability, for your compassion, because I think compassion is so important, especially when it comes to that forgiveness. You need to have that compassion. So thank you so much for joining us today, Elita, and I wish you so well on your future journey. One last tip for our listeners.
Yeah. And yeah, Louis, thank you so much. I'm just extremely happy to be here and to be able to share my story. And to the audience, I would just say, and the audience could be somebody who's currently going through abuse, who has gone out of abusive situations, or knows somebody who's going through abuse. I would just say that to somebody who's going through it, that you are strong and you can come out of it. And just have faith and take one step at a time, one action every day to go towards the life that you deserve. And to somebody who's come out of it, I believe that you are truly strong and you are brave and you have so much to offer to the world. I want you to realize it, and I want you to be that example of a person who is not defined by their story, but who is incredibly strong and purposeful and beautiful in every way. And to anyone who knows that somebody around them is going through abuse, I would just say, just have a listening ear without judgment, because it's sometimes easy to say, oh, just come out of your situation, just leave that person. But it's not easy for that person who's in that situation. So just be a support, a listening ear, and ask them what you can do for them. And that would give them the strength to finally come out of their situation.
Wonderful. Such wise words. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for listening, everybody. And I invite you all to fly free.
Thank you for listening to Walking Without Skin. We would love your feedback, opinions, suggestions, and ratings. Please share this podcast far and wide to encourage more people to share their stories with vulnerability and authenticity.
I wanna live. I